Yakutsk appears first as a mirage of habitation, a city blurred by its own breath. In the dead of winter, a thick, frozen haze hangs low over the Lena River Valley. Habitation fog, born from exhaust, chimney smoke, and human warmth meeting air so cold it can't hold moisture. Sunlight, when it comes, arrives filtered and pale, and the skyline looks softened, as if the city has been wrapped in cotton. Then the temperature lands with physical force, -50, -60, and in the wider region, readings that can plunge toward -71 degrees Celsius, -96 Fahrenheit. In that cold, a simple gesture becomes a demonstration of physics. Throw boiling water into the air, and it doesn't fall as droplets. It flashes into a drifting cloud of ice crystals, a brief white bloom that vanishes into the fog. Yakutsk is often described as the coldest major city on Earth, a title that's both accurate in spirit and easy to misunderstand. The very coldest temperatures in the world belong to Antarctica, and some Siberian villages, most famously Oymyakon and Verkhoyansk, compete for records as the coldest permanently inhabited places. Yakutsk, though, is the largest city built on continuous permafrost, with a population in the hundreds of thousands, and it functions year-round as the capital of the Sakha Republic, also known as Yakutia, in Russia's Far East. That combination, big city life on ground that never truly thaws, makes it one of the most instructive places on the planet for understanding how humans adapt to extreme climate. The story of Yakutsk begins as a frontier outpost of empire. In 1632, Cossacks led by Pyotr Beketov founded a fort on the Lena River as part of Russia's rapid eastward expansion across Siberia. The fort shifted location within a decade to a site less vulnerable to flooding, and from there, Yakutsk grew into an administrative center and a staging point for exploration. From this region, expeditions pushed toward the Pacific, mapping rivers and coastlines, collecting tribute, and knitting distant territories into a state that spanned continents. Yakutsk's later history includes waves of exile and forced settlement under the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union, and then a dramatic post-Soviet transformation fueled by resource wealth, especially diamonds, making it both a repository of older Siberian hardships and a modern capital with universities, theaters, and a growing cultural confidence. To understand Yakutsk today, it helps to start with the ground under your feet. Permafrost here is not a seasonal inconvenience. It is the foundation of everything, literally. The soil remains frozen for hundreds of meters below the surface. In summer, only a thin, active layer thaws, turning unpaved areas to mud and making drainage a constant concern. Buildings are typically raised on piles driven into the permafrost, leaving an air gap beneath to keep heat from the structure from melting the ground and destabilizing foundations. You notice it walking through neighborhoods. Houses elevated, pipes routed above ground in insulated corridors, and a city layout that feels engineered against invisible forces. Climate change, which warms the Arctic faster than the global average, is not an abstract topic here. Thawing permafrost can warp roads, crack foundations, and complicate water and sewage systems, turning Yakutsk into a frontline laboratory for the future of cold region cities. Winter is the season that shapes the city's character most powerfully. At -40, the air feels dry and sharp, and sound carries strangely. Metal becomes brittle, rubber stiffens and can shatter. Touching bare skin to a metal surface is a fast route to injury because heat leaves your body so quickly. Breathing becomes deliberate. You learn to cover your face not only for comfort, but to protect lungs and skin. Step outside for a short walk, and your eyelashes and eyebrows begin to collect frost, each blink adding another fine layer until your face looks dusted with sugar. People move with practiced efficiency, minimizing exposure, planning errands like small expeditions. Yet the city does not stop. It reorganizes. The open-air markets are among the most unforgettable scenes in Yakutsk because they reveal how food culture adapts to a natural freezer. In deep winter, fish can be displayed upright, like wooden boards, frozen so solid they stand on their tails. Vendors sell stroganina, a celebrated Yakut delicacy, raw fish, usually white fish such as omul or muksun when available, sliced into thin ribbons while still frozen and eaten with salt and pepper. Milk and dairy products may be sold in solid blocks, and meat can be handled outdoors with a practicality that seems surreal to visitors. This is not novelty. It is a cuisine and a supply chain shaped by temperature, where preservation can be literal air. Transportation tells another story of adaptation. In extreme cold, engine oil thickens, batteries weaken, and metal contracts. In many places, a parked car is a simple object. In Yakutsk's coldest stretches, it can become a liability. Some drivers use engine block heaters, others rely on heated garages when they can. And then there is the famous sight that visitors remember: cars left idling for long periods, sometimes through the day or night, because restarting later might be uncertain. It's not universal. Fuel is expensive and people are resourceful, but it's common enough to feel like a citywide ritual, a reminder that technology has to negotiate with physics here, not the other way around. Daily clothing becomes a form of engineering. Locals favor layers and materials that trap air: down, wool, fur, and modern synthetics designed for Arctic conditions. The best winter boots are less about style than insulation and traction. The wrong soles turn sidewalks into skating rinks. People often wear face coverings that manage moisture because exhaled breath can freeze and stiffen fabric. Eyeglasses fog and then frost. Camera batteries drain quickly. Smartphones become unreliable. Even simple tasks, opening a door, handling keys, waiting for a bus, acquire a time limit. In that sense, Yakutsk teaches a visitor how quickly the environment can impose rules. And then you step indoors, and the city changes again. Behind triple-paned windows and thick doors, Yakutsk is warm, brightly lit, and socially busy. Central heating is not a luxury. It is the circulatory system of urban life. Apartments, cafes, museums, and theaters become the true public squares of winter. People gather for long meals, for performances, for family celebrations. The contrast is startling. Outside, the air can punish exposed skin in minutes. Inside, children play, students argue about exams, and friends meet for tea as if the world beyond the window were merely inconvenient weather. Yakutsk's cultural heart belongs to the Saka people, also called Yakuts, a Turkic-speaking indigenous nation whose history in this region stretches back centuries, shaped by horse and cattle breeding adapted to harsh northern conditions. Saka culture remains visible and audible in the city, in language on signs and in schools, in music and dance, in clothing at festivals, and in the pride attached to local traditions. One of the most significant annual events is Isyak, the Saka Summer Festival, held around the time of the solstice. After months of winter discipline, Isyak celebrates renewal with communal gatherings, traditional ceremonies, dance circles, and the drinking of kumis, fermented mare's milk, linking modern Yakutsk to older pastoral lifeways. For a visitor, timing a trip to include Isyak offers a view of Yakutsk that winter alone cannot provide, not just endurance, but joy. The city's museums help translate this place for outsiders. The Mammoth Museum is a natural starting point because Yakutia is one of the world's richest regions for Ice Age remains. Permafrost preserves mammoths, woolly rhinos, and other Pleistocene animals with startling completeness. Sometimes hair, skin, and stomach contents survive. These finds are not mere curiosities. They are data, feeding research into ancient ecosystems and climate. Seeing a mammoth exhibit in Yakutsk feels different than seeing one elsewhere, because the ground outside the museum is the archive. The permafrost is a library that occasionally opens a page. Equally revealing is the Kingdom of Permafrost, an underground complex carved into frozen ground where ice sculptures and chambers demonstrate the reality of living atop a permanently frozen substrate. It's partly attraction, partly lesson. Permafrost isn't just cold soil. It is a structural condition that shapes architecture, economics, and risk. For travelers, it also underscores a practical truth. Even when the air warms in summer, the earth beneath remains cold, and the city's relationship with temperature is never casual. Yakutsk also rewards visitors who pay attention to its built environment. Many buildings are Soviet-era, functional and sturdy, designed for a planned city in a demanding climate. Newer structures increasingly incorporate modern insulation, better windows, and energy-efficient systems, because heating is a matter of survival and cost. Walk the streets and you'll notice above-ground pipelines, an Arctic solution to a frozen ground that resists burial. You'll see courtyards designed to reduce wind exposure. You'll feel how the city uses architecture as a shield. For all its severity, Yakutsk is not a place of constant misery. It is a place of constant calculation. Visitors do best when they treat the climate with the seriousness locals do. Dress for the cold you might actually encounter, not the cold you hope for. Prioritize insulated boots, wind-proof outer layers, and mittens over gloves if you'll be outside for long. Keep spare batteries warm and expect electronics to behave oddly. Plan transportation with buffers. In extreme cold, delays happen. Learn basic etiquette around indoor spaces. People often change footwear and outerwear at entrances, and you'll be grateful for the warmth once inside. If you're traveling in the coldest season, take advice locally about safe exposure times and wind chill, because the danger is not dramatic, it's quietly cumulative. Timing matters. Winter offers the iconic images: the fog, the frosted faces, the frozen markets, the physics experiments performed accidentally with every breath. But summer reveals a different Yakutsk. Long daylight, green riverbanks, and a city that feels suddenly expansive. The Lena River becomes a corridor of movement and scenery, and the social calendar opens up. Shoulder seasons can be muddy, because thawing and refreezing complicate streets and sidewalks. If you want the coldest experience, aim for midwinter. If you want cultural events and easier movement, late spring and summer are kinder. There is an anecdote that circulates among visitors because it captures Yakutsk's logic in a single image. The moment you see fish standing upright at a market stall, not propped up for display but rigid with cold, like planks in a carpenter's shop. It's funny at first, then instructive. In Yakutsk, the environment is so decisive that it turns everyday objects into demonstrations. A scarf becomes a respirator. A parking lot becomes an engine room. A breath becomes a cloud of crystals. And yet, behind the glass and insulation, there is a city with students planning careers, artists staging performances, families celebrating births, and elders passing on language and memory. Yakutsk's real fascination lies in that coexistence: lethal air and ordinary life, alien outdoor mechanics and warm domestic normalcy, ancient permafrost and modern ambition. Visit it, and you don't just collect extreme temperature stories. You gain a clearer sense of how cities are agreements between humans and their environment, and how, in one of the harshest inhabited climates on Earth, that agreement is renegotiated every single day.